Well, my first story today is the shocking scenes that I saw on Polish beaches, having spent the last 2 weeks quaffing my way through inordinate numbers of non-alcoholic beers and eating carrots, celery, cucumber, and tomatoes galore. Because John, I know you're heading out for your beach holiday fairly soon, but
Yeah.
the level of obesity in the country surprised me. Now, I don't get out of the house very much, as you know, John, and particularly with the pandemic, I've spent limited amounts of time outside of the house anyway. But I spent plenty of time on Polish beaches over the last 2 weeks, and
Where were you?
Just up by a place called Yantar, so on the
Okay.
little bay
that
there.
way.
So, close to Gdansk and all the rest of it. Beautiful, beautiful place. We're going to talk about that in a second. And I have to admit that I was surprised by the number of portly persons ambling up and down the beach or lolling on their Melexes, their little electric carts. Now, obviously, everyone's struggle with their weight is an individual thing, but nonetheless, we know that in industrialized countries around the world, the problem of overweightness as well as obesity are increasingly prevalent. Well, John, I've got some surprising stats for you. Are you ready?
I'm all about stats, mate.
Obviously, both of us have struggled with our weight issues in the past. So again, we're looking at this very much from the point of view, we've gone deep on this subject. We've eaten our way through enough food and fast food in our time.
We certainly have. We certainly have.
Boy, have we. So we're no stranger to this problem. But that's also true of Polish people, because I did some digging into the stats, John, and it turns out that over half of all Polish people suffer from some form of overweightness, as I'm going to call it. In fact, 44% of men, and this is something I can confirm from my anecdotal beach watching, suffer from overweightness, nadwaga, I'm just literally translating that, and 30% of women. But the more, I think, tragic thing that I saw on the Polish beaches was the amount of obesity and flabbiness, frankly, of Polish kids. I saw lots of boys, although the statistics from the OECD show that actually every fourth boy has some kind of problem with overweightness, and every third girl. But I have to say that's not what I anecdotally saw on the Polish beaches. Now, there are lots of reasons for this. It's a complicated problem. If it was easy to fix, it would have been fixed a long time ago. And probably anyone from a Western European country would say, hey, this is a problem here. But it actually turns out, John, another surprising thing for you.
Yeah.
Poland's one of the fattest countries in the whole of Europe.
Sorry, it was at a jaw drop moment there.
It was. Yeah, so although it's coming from behind,
it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't really surprise me, Paddy, to be honest with you. You see a lot of food products. Obviously everyone's on a tight budget. There's inflation in Poland. Everyone's, counting their zloty and trying to, make ends meet. Much more now than, let's say, pre-pandemic. I mean, I think the pandemic has actually brought quite a lot of, price hikes across the board. Especially here in Poland. So,
yes,
families now, especially, with a few kids, are actually, looking to save some money here and there. And, and you see that, people still demand, lots of food for the least amount of money. And, and it's actually quite ironic that, you can actually buy a lot of food for not very much, but then the quality of that food is not going to be very good, unfortunately. And of course, we see lots of food products containing lots of E numbers and artificial preservatives and things like that, right? Which are not very good for the body. And of course, sugar is omnipresent. So
it is,
there you go. I mean, there's your answer to Poland's obesity problem. I mean, it's like simply people can't afford, kind of good quality food.
Yes, it's ironic for a country which is a major food producer, but vegetables and all the rest of it. However, having said that, the average Pole is quite capable of cooking up their own home meal, whereas I possibly wouldn't say that of the country I was born into and lived a significant chunk of my life in. So there's six of one, half a dozen of the other. It's a feast for the yeast, old sugar, isn't it, John? But it's also, as the report's shown, the statistics I've been looking into, the reports I've been reading heavily to look into this, it also has, of course, a major impact on well-being. Now, this is something both you and I are very interested in. We've spent a lot of time studying that as well. I think we've read as much about well-being as we've had fast food suppers. Is that right, John?
I'm going to pass on that one.
Well, we thought about it at least, Yeah. So it turns out that obviously poor diet has a significant impact on your well-being. your
Yeah, yeah,
self-esteem,
absolutely.
how happy you feel about yourself. And we've got a comment here from Jeffrey. Hello from New York. The food is great in Poland, better than New York, says Jeffrey.
Well, it depends what you want to eat, right? Although I must admit, I do like Polish food. I mean, like, I'm not talking about fast food, but just like the general traditional Polish cuisine. But then you have to watch out for the calories as well. I mean, there's so much, let's say, gluten. Obviously, there's this massive, gluten craze or anti-gluten craze, rather, I should say. And of course, the whole Polish diet seems to be kind of based on it. You know, you have lots of kind of pasta products such as pierogi. God, give me some pierogi right now. That's what I
Oh,
could deal with, actually.
love a
Yeah.
bit of that. Or just some Polish sushi. Now, John, we've got through the whole story without you mentioning the fact that I've lost weight. So I do need to bring attention to the
Sorry,
fact that
Paddy. Did I forget to say that? Wow, you look really buff, mate. Have you lost some weight?
thanks, John. I thank you for saying that. I did lose some weight actually, so that's very kind of you.
Not bad.
However, I'm not going to hold a moral high horse on anyone carrying a few extra kilos or pounds because I've been there and done that. So we wish everyone well, but this is a story we'll be keeping an eagle eye on, just as I was on the beach observing it as well.
So
We
we
do.
want lots of comments from our faithful viewers from across the globe.
We do.
Sorry, you can
And we bring you
continue.
stories that you can't help but comment upon. Their comment worthiness is very high. So, my second story, guys, I think this is shocking that if you Google top 20 beaches in Europe, not a single Polish beach will come within a sniffing distance of that list, nor any further list. Yes, it's the tragic fact that Poland's beautiful Baltic beaches are long forgotten. But that's good news for you, fellow traveler, because it turns out that they are rather fantastic to go and visit. So I've just come back from 2 weeks spent sunning my portly body on the Polish Baltic coast, eating my fill of fried fish and sallow yellow chips or fries, as our American cousins would call them. And it struck me, John, and I know you're about to go and do the same or whatever it is you do on your holidays. It's conjecture. I have some speculation.
We'll get onto that in just a moment, Paddy. Don't you worry.
Yeah, I just think it's actually one of those unknown gems of Poland that people don't appreciate the fact that, just so you know, Poland has 770 kilometers of coastal, beautiful beaches.
Yes.
John, 770.
That's a lot. That's a lot. I would say that only a few hundred of those kilometers are really, truly beautiful, though. I'm a big fan of the Baltic coast to the west of Gdańsk. In a village, I love staying in a village called Kopalino and Lubiatowo. I don't know whether any of our viewers have heard of those villages. I'm going to be going there next weekend. I can't wait. I've been there. I think we've been going there now for about 5 or 6 years with my family. It's west of this very popular resort called Dębki, where all the hipsters used to go to, and now, well, I suppose they still go there. But this place is in the middle of nowhere. You have to cycle around everywhere, and the best thing is that it's actually, you have a very good, talking about exercise, and as you said in your previous story, Paddy, about people with slightly portly proportions, just walrusing it on the beach. You actually have to cycle a good 10 or 15 kilometers to get to the good places. But luckily, in this part of the Baltic coast, you actually have a Eurovelo route. So you have the beautiful kind of cycle path actually through the forests, and you can actually choose which entrance to go onto, so you can actually really kind of get to the secluded beaches and practically have the Baltic to yourself, mate.
It's funny you should say that, John, because I decided whilst I was doing my research, looking deeply into this story and thinking about it, to summarize 5 key facts for why Poland's beaches deserve to be higher in that bleeding ranking than they absolutely are. By the way, we've had a fantastic comment from long-time watcher, listener, and supporter, Jeffrey Simbler. Jeffrey had a wonderful first time in Gdansk, but it wasn't beach weather when I was there. Jeffrey, John and I hail from the United Kingdom of Great Britain, Northern Ireland. Every day is beach weather, my friend. Gdansk is a must for tourists. You're absolutely right about that. I've come up with 5 reasons why I think Poland's beaches deserve to come higher in the top rankings than they are. So number 1 is length.
Yeah.
As a shortly fellow myself, shortly and portly, I'm not a massive believer in length, but I have to say, 770 kilometers, that's a heck of a lot of beaches.
Yeah.
Number 2,
they're really wide as well. You get really wide beaches. Yeah.
Super wide with fine, soft sand. None of that hard, gravelly pebble stuff that you get on British beaches. Also, John, cheap. So it's affordable affordable rented accommodation and available hotels all along that coastline. Some of it's easier to get to. So Gdansk, Jeffrey mentions here, is well served by an airport. Places like you're mentioning might be a drive away, but you can get there and get around.
There are trains. You can get a mini. I think there's like a mini bus there, like 4 or 5 mini buses a day from Wejherowo, which is like a town west of Gdańsk or west of Tri-City. So it is accessible if you don't have a car.
Number 3, amber. All you have to do is walk along the beach and amber will make its way to you, like some kind of pot of gold brimming with amber sesterci. So that's actually really cool because it turns walking up and down in a beach, not just a boring activity you have to do because your loved one forces you to do it, but because you want to do it to equip yourself with amber. Number 4, weather. Unlike certain countries. Poland is more or less guaranteed to have at least hot weather. Might be a little bit
Yeah,
stormy, might be a little bit of rain from time to time, but
but it's
most of those days will be dry and sunny. And number 5, John actually cottoned onto this, something which I did not appreciate, which is the pine forests
yeah.
that edge the beaches. And not only beautiful from the
Smell of
point of view
those
of the
forests.
beach, but on the vast majority of the cases, you have to walk or cycle to get there. So you don't have horrible hundreds of cars all lined up right by the beach edge. You don't have, in the majority of cases, huge hotel complexes kind of ruining the view with loud music and all this kind of stuff. If you want a secluded, beautiful beach holiday on soft, dulcet like sand with barely a soul around because they're all hidden in their paravana, their little things that
Yeah.
you can go a hell of a lot worse than to the Polish Baltic coast. Now, John, I have to tell you one last thing, though, before we finish this story, which is sadly, I spent some of my time in my research phase with my nose deep in the information of water pollution. And unfortunately, for several decades, the Baltic has had a stinky reputation. It's one of the
Yeah.
most polluted seas on the whole of the earth. Now, little known fact, John, as you know, I like to look into my military history. It turns out that after the Second World War, a significant amount of chemical weaponry was dumped in the Baltic Sea. Wasn't needed anymore. And unfortunately, because of that and many other reasons, including ecological reasons today, I wouldn't advise drinking a cup of water from the Baltic Sea, John, after everything I've read.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. There is one actually, there is one final thing which is missing from your regaling about the Baltic and the Polish seaside, and that is the amazing collection of lighthouses you get dotted across the Polish seafront. And I recommend to anyone who's going to be up on the Baltic coast this summer to go to, let's say, Ustka, which is a beautiful coastal town where I actually spent many summers back in the 1980s when I was growing up. And also the most beautiful one in like my favorite village, my favorite spot is the Stilo lighthouse, which is just east of Weber. And that's, of course, Jeffrey's chiming in with a comment there. Don't forget Westerplatte, of course. But Stilo, of course, is in the middle of a forest, and you can climb up to the top, and you have this amazing vista of these beautiful pine forests, and then the Baltic. Obviously, you can't quite see Sweden because it's quite far, quite far away. You can't even see Bornholm, which is another Danish island in the Baltic, where lots of Poles like to go holidaying during the summer months. But definitely do check out the lighthouses if you are in that part of the country, and you won't be disappointed.
Well, John, I'm too busy staring at people's overweightness, looking at stories for the
You should be
first
looking
news.
at the fun things in life, Paddy. You know,
Once a journalist,
things
you're
sticking up
never
from
off
the ground.
duty as a journalist, John. Just always on the hunt for a story or the sniff for a stinky sea. So those are my 2 stories, John. But I believe that you have 2 stories of yourself. So what's your
Yes,
first
I
story?
do. Well, my first story is, it's a kind of summer classic story of basically about things going wrong. But it's a bit of a comedy caper. This one, and this is the story of a police of a policeman who caught a drug producer who was hiding behind his granny's sofa. So policemen in Torun, on the Mokre housing estate, they managed to catch this this drug dealer, this drug producer, and he decided to go and hide at his grandmother's place. Now, of course, you would have thought that that's like, not a bad deal. You can always count on your family to help out and all the rest of it, even if you are being a bit of a naughty boy. And he decided to hide behind his granny's sofa and then put cushions onto himself, like, it's a kind of hide. It's a
Behind or
kind of a
inside?
it's a like, no, behind like, take the cushions from the sofa, hide behind the sofa, and take the cushions and put them on top of yourself. So it's like, it's like basically a toddler building a fort. You know what I mean? And it's kind of the idea that I can't stop laughing about this story. It's kind of the feeling that, like, if I can't see them, they can't see me, kind of thing. So they this guy's 30, right? But the policeman knocked on the door, and the grandmother said that, like, no, my grandson isn't here. And then the policeman said, "Well, actually, we'll decide about that." So they went inside, and they saw this guy. They saw this guy he got busted in the end, because not because of the fact that he had cushions on him, but the fact that his legs were actually sticking out the side of the sofa. So he was not doing a very good job. So yeah, I'm really sorry. I'm getting the giggles. I shouldn't really get the giggles about a story like this, because of course, say no to drugs, everyone out there, and it's absolutely hilarious that he got caught in such, well, a mundane fashion. It's the kind of thing you get in a kind of, I don't know, Laurel and Hardy movie or something like that.
John, would it be fair to say that he'd gone so far and couldn't go any further with his career?
I wasn't ready for that pun, Paddy. I really wasn't ready for that. But
I've
yeah,
been
you're
holding
right.
that in
You are right.
for some time now, and I needed to get it out. Well, it sounds like his granny wasn't up for taking the blows for him, but the cushion was.
Yeah. Yeah.
That didn't really come off. Okay, and do we know who's going to foot the bill for this? Get it? Feet sticking out. Do we know what the sentence was? Has he been sentenced, or is he awaiting trial? And is he still stuck down the back of his granny's sofa?
Yeah, no, well, he's obviously being taken into custody, and the news story which I saw about this doesn't state whether he's been charged yet or not. But considering there's quite a lot of incriminating evidence against the chap, he probably won't be out of prison for a few years. I mean, you can actually Poland has extremely harsh fines and sentences for possession of narcotics, so he probably won't be.
He won't be making makeshift forts
he won't be
behind his
watching any
granny.
TV on his granny's sofa for a very long time, unfortunately.
Well, wherever they put him, I hope he's got a comfortable place to stay, because he clearly likes it. It goes to show, I always used to say, you'd be surprised what you find down the back of your sofa.
Yeah.
But I had in mind £2 coins rather than a nefarious drug dealer.
Yeah. You're kind of like scratching your nose when you said that. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Is that a?
We need to kill this story, Paddy. This is like, it's enough. It's enough.
All right,
So
let's arrest that story and move swiftly on, John, to your final story for today.
And the other story is something I saw. I mean, in fact, it's something I see on a pretty regular basis. But there just happened to be a story written up about it, and that is the story of a massive car pileup on the national road number 81 down in I think it's in Silesia, right? Where you have someone stopping at a zebra crossing, and then you have one car, just banging into him, and then you have another car, and it's just kind of a total. I don't know. I was going to use a word, but I'm not going to use it. We're live on Facebook. It's not going to happen. But yes, it was a pile-up, I think is the professional term used for a car accident of such magnitude. And yeah, but basically it was filmed. The thing which I wanted to get onto is the fact that it's filmed on a dash cam. Now, of course, Russian dash cams are extremely popular, and people like watching them for all the crazy stuff that happens on Russian roads. But when you actually look at Polish dash cams, you think, wow, it's actually quite, it's normal, but extremely sinister. Because it's generally people not concentrating on the road. The amount of people, Paddy, I see texting while driving is just insane. Absolutely insane. I would say that I'm a pretty aggressive driver, having lived in Warsaw for quite a long time now. But when I see people texting, I go feel, my face goes red. And I find it very hard not to honk my horn. Sorry?
You grimace with distaste, or do you?
Yes, I grimace with distaste, and I give them an evil stare, like, "What are you doing?" But anyway, Polish dash cams obviously are, worth watching. There are actually a couple of YouTube channels dedicated to Polish dash cams, and they are actually there to, act as a warning to other drivers and to pedestrians, and just to make sure that, okay, you are on the road, you got to watch out, and you got to concentrate on what you're doing, and not use your mobile phone or drink and drive or whatever, you see some pretty crazy stuff.
Yep.
And living in Poland, you just see lots of crazy stuff on Polish roads anyway. And I mean, one thing I will say is that like a whole bunch of new laws, which came into force this summer, which means that pedestrians have right of way on zebra crossings and all the rest of it. And now Poles have to even slow down and stop at a zebra crossing if someone even is thinking about getting onto a zebra crossing. So they're catching up with the UK, because as far as I remember, that was always part of the driving law in the United Kingdom. Here, if you saw a pedestrian on the side of the road, you just speed up. Oh yes, and Jeffrey's written Polish tailgaters. That's it, Polish tailgaters. There's a new law. Then one of the new laws is also that you're not allowed to tailgate. You can actually get arrested and fined, and get lots of points for tailgating.
Funny you should mention that, John, because I drove 450 kilometers today from Gdansk to Warsaw, and more than once had that situation, including a guy who aggressively flashed his lights at me, despite the fact there were 3 cars, in front of me. There's not much I could do about that. So if I had the time, I'd probably whip my SD card out, stick it into my machine, download the forfending material and send it to the authorities, but I probably won't get around to it, but I bloody well should do, because it's absolutely outrageous. Yes, Polish safety on the roads is the subject here, and that video that you showed is quite shocking, because I think the sunlight is the big issue there, isn't it? Because they're coming on a bit of a low dip, the sun and there's some poor blighter crossing the road who almost gets destroyed by these 4 cars all smashing into each other. So he was lucky.
Yes, he was extremely lucky. And you see all kinds of accidents like that all the time. I've even seen, unfortunately, I've driven past, dead bodies covered in silver foil, and, gone past lethal accidents on Polish roads. This is before the advent of Poland's new expressways, which have been built over the past few years. But yeah, when I first moved to Poland, I saw some pretty horrific stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe there should be a viewer advisory. I'm sorry for saying that kind of thing. If I've
that's okay, John.
If
if Poland's road safety record was any better, then you probably wouldn't have had that experience. You wouldn't have been able to talk about it. So it's chicken and egg rather situation here. So yes, this video here is the shocking information about yet another road accident, one of many on the Polish roads. I drove past 3 or 4. I mean, quite obvious situations where someone had just rear-ended someone else because they were tailgating. Exactly what our biggest supporter today, Jeffrey, is talking about here in his comment. And so guys, if you just had a little bit more room between cars, you'd avoid so many car crashes and then make everyone else's life hell. So there you go. That's the video for today. Thank you, John. Well, guys, I think we're coming to the end of What's Up Poland. Let us know what you think about this. You can always subscribe to The First News wherever you find it, or subscribe to What's Up Poland. John and I are your witty, irreverent hosts. Sometimes we talk about some serious stuff, but we always try and do it with a little bit of light humor. I'd like to pay great tribute to our friend Jeffrey Simbler, watching us. I think he's gone back now. He's been touring around Poland, keeping the world entertained with his stories. So Jeffrey, I am saluting you.
Always a pleasure.
Absolute legend, really great guy. He's been a guest on Heart of Poland, well-deserved guest. Fascinating character and story as well. So I do encourage you to check out Jeffrey if you're watching this on our Facebook page. If, however, you're watching What's Up Poland for the first time and you're interested in these witty stories of Poland, then of course you can go to thefirstnews.com, the premier English language website for news about Poland, where you'll find fascinating interviews and stories about fascinating people leading fascinating lives. Thank you very much, John. I will let you go now. Goodbye, sir. Goodbye to you.
Goodbye.
And goodbye to you wherever you're watching. We'll see you again for another episode of
What's Up Poland.
Stop streaming.